We begin this Science of Stretch video for Inezotech wrapping film by focusing on the basic nature of the film. Because it is a PVC-based film, it is very durable, it weathers very well, and it's very flexible. This stretch allows it to be formed onto bumpers, mirrors, door handles, and much more, yet PVC film has a characteristic called memory, which means that as soon as it's stretched, it wants to shrink back to its original position. So here heat is added again, and you can see how the film bounces back to being flat. This aspect of Inezotech film is very important to understand during the install process. Installers should avoid overstretching the film during the install as it puts too much energy on the adhesive to hold the edge or recessed area. Now, based on this knowledge that Inezotech film wants to shrink back when it's stretched, we now move on to an even more important feature of Inezotech film that will help make the wrapping process very easy, and that is zero stretch. Inezotech Supergloss wrapping film is a hybrid film. So during the manufacturing process, the film is naturally stretched on the length of the roll and not so much on the width of the roll. What this means is there is energy built into the Inezotech film from the manufacturing process. Here the film is being removed from the liner and placed adhesive side up. Keep in mind that the film wasn't stretched at all when it was removed from the liner, so you would think that the film has no tension in it and it's at 0%. However, when heat is added to the film in overlapping runs at a slow, steady pace, a very interesting thing happens to the Inezotech film. The high heat and slow pace triggers the memory of the PVC in the film, much like you saw earlier in the video with the trash can. What the film is now doing is shrinking back to its original tension before it was manufactured, or rather, stretched to form the Inezotech high gloss wrapping film. Once heated, let's look at the results, and you can see that the film shrank back on the edges, especially the left and the right. So in terms of percentage, the film reformed by around 5 to 6% on the horizontal run and almost nothing on the width. So what this means is by heating the film in this way, it recalibrates it to true zero, which significantly helps installers avoid overstretching the film. This is called zero stretch. Based on this, you're going to see two examples of Inezotech film being installed. Here with the black gloss film, it's being wrapped in a traditional style of wrapping. Here on the back fender, the film is being randomly heated to soften it, then it's stretched by both installers to the edge. Yes, the film does get to the edge without wrinkles on the main body area, but keep in mind that that natural stretch that's already built into the film has been stretched even more to the edge. This means that the film, in many cases, has been overstretched. This leaves too much tension in the film, plus it makes the wrapping process much harder. Here's another example on a recessed area. The film has been randomly heated and stretched over the area. You can see the tension that's in the film already as it slips off the outside edge. That tension that's in the film is then formed into the recessed area. And because the film wasn't recalibrated back to zero before the install, it's being extra stretched into these areas. This can cause the recessed area to pop out, and the installers have to expend a lot of their own energy to work the film onto the surface. This can lead also to a lot of adhesive lines, which lowers overall quality. Now, here is the Inezotech suggested way of wrapping, which involves zero stretch and TWI wrap matrix. Instead of forcing the film into this recessed area on the back fender, the film is held lightly away at a 90-degree angle and high heat is added. This shrinks this part of the panel back to 0%, then the film cools and is formed into the recessed area. This means no tension on this critical area, so long-term hold is assured. Once the film is formed into the recessed area, it's then squeegeed onto the flat area, which never fails. And once the film starts to bunch up on the curves, instead of forcing the film onto the surface, the installers stop and use the zero stretch technique. One installer lightly holds the film off the surface at a 10 to 20 degree angle, and the other installer evenly heats the film from side to side. This shrinks the Inezotech film, which means that it forms naturally to the surface. On the other side of the back fender on the lower section, the same steps are applied. And you can see how, with the overlapping strokes and angle of the heat gun, in many ways, the heat gun is the squeegee. The film relaxes right to the surface. And since it's being recalibrated back to 0%, there's no tension in the film at all. And that shrink is wrapping the car for the installers so they don't have to put out much energy. This means less work for the installers having to put the film onto the car. And here on this curvy upper corner of the back fender, notice the difference between the traditional style that you saw earlier versus using zero stretch with the Inezotech film. Here, by adding heat in those overlapping strokes, the film is shrinking to the curve as it's being gently guided around the edge. It keeps the film from overstretching on this critical area, and even here on the underside, heat is added, which makes the film shrink right to the edge. This makes the wrapping process super easy. Now here at the very top of the back fender, remember on the other footage how the film was forced and had lots of tension on the edge and in the recessed area. Here, using zero stretch, the film is simply relaxed and it shrinks to the edge. This means no tension and, more importantly, no adhesive lines in the film, as it lays flat to the surface and is simply squeegeed into place. And be sure to watch the other videos in this Inezotech education series, as you will see how to combine zero stretch with the wrap matrix to make wrapping areas like bumpers easier than ever. So as you can see, heat is key for wrapping with an Inezotech film, so now let's focus on the best combination to use. Steam is very effective, and there are a wide variety to choose from that have different attachments. Steam can quickly reach around 200 degrees Fahrenheit, but not higher than that, so it's safe. Handheld IR heaters are very good because they produce a high heat and are very wide. Always make sure that you use a shortwave bulb, and keep in mind that IR heaters are best used for after the install, as they help warm the film and activate the adhesive. A heat gun will be the most used tool. Try to get one that has variable settings, as sometimes it's best to have the heat gun on a high output and other times on medium output. It is highly recommended not to use a propane torch. The flame can get the face of the film too hot and the back remains cold, and there is always a chance of burning the film, so this is a big no-no. Finally, having an IR thermometer is critical, as certain areas of an Inezotech film have to be post-heated at the end of the job. So, the primary heating tools are an IR thermometer, handheld IR heater, and a high-quality heat gun.